About 5 years ago, I went up to Manchester to what they called a Mind, Body, Spirit Festival at Manchester Arena. It was terrible, if I'm honest, and I'm not proud of having gone there. It was a very interesting weekend for all sorts of reasons, and in many ways, on a personal level, a life-changing weekend. But that was nothing to do with Manchester Mind, Body, Spirit Festival. What that particular festival was, effectively, was a kind of trade fair for people who sold what I think were almost entirely bogus treatments, holistic therapies, crystals, CDs of binaural beats stuff, that kind of thing, really. And that, it was a bit boring, really. I stayed for about an hour and then got fed up. But it was interesting for all sorts of reasons. And what it led me to think about is, well, first off, it's led me to notice that the use of that term spirit, again, within all sorts of contexts. I know mind, body, spirit are often put together as a kind of holy trinity of ideas. I don't know why it's always those three. I think there's something about the number 3 which perhaps is very attractive. But also that particular term spirit, I've noticed, certainly creeping into discourses outside of the very kind of narrow confines of that kind of festival, increasingly recently. It's very common for politicians in the UK to use terms like spirit now, which when it was completely off the register until really recently. Some of the documents that my kids brought back from school used words like spirit or spirituality, not in any kind of heavy-handed religious way, but just would include it as part of their remit. And I've seen it quite a lot in things like sports psychology or in any kind of training program, particularly for sports, but for other kinds of things as well, business management, theatre, art, counselling, all sorts of different contexts use the word spirit as well. So I'm quite interested in that term, particularly within that trilogy. But there's a couple of things I think I'm kind of bringing to the table in terms of background baggage, which are informing how I'm thinking of it. So I just need to flesh those out for myself first. And which is to do with experiences of, how we go about categorizing and classifying experiences into those kind of neat domains, whether they be mind, body, spirit, or whether it be something that relates to that. And certainly my first experience of that when I was a kid in primary school, in Mrs. Ashworth's class in Haslingden County Primary School in Lancashire. And we had a kind of nature table on there. And Mrs. Ashworth said that for the next session we'd have to bring in one or more objects which fitted either into the category of something alive or something dead or something never alive. I took in a piece of wood for something dead, a little piece of mercury that I got from a broken thermometer for something never alive, and I caught a fly and put it in a jar, and that was my live thing. So that was a kind of introduction to the idea that the universe can be broken down into sections, and the particular classification system that Mrs. Ashworth used was those 3 of alive, dead, never alive. I don't think it features in the national curriculum now, so I guess it's a classification system that never really caught on. But it did stick with me for a long time, actually, and I still think of it sometimes. And of course, the other system that I don't think anybody can help bring into that table is the kind of substantial classification of substances into solids and liquids and gases, which seem to the world seems to fall out into if we allow it to, even though we know that certainly the solid liquid gases classification system is at best a collection of fuzzy sets. They're not specific classical categories, and there's probably a 4th. I know people talk about plasma as the 4th state of matter, so there's at least a 4th in there. But there's also a whole series of substances like colloids and gels, suspensions, things like that, which don't really fit neatly into any of those categories, and lived experiences like slush, or like jelly, or like rain, which aren't or steam or something like that, which again don't fit neatly into those categories. But generally I think we do routinely think in terms of prototypical categories of solids, liquids and gases. So mind, body, spirit, when I'm thinking about those things, I can't help that for myself kind of degenerating back or kind of reflecting back or resonating with these other categorization systems that I've kind of inherited. The alive, dead, never alive, and the solid, liquid, gas structure. So why am I talking about this? Well, it's to do with spirit, I guess, and what kind of a problem I have with that, and can I learn anything about that by comparing it to these other classification systems? Can I use those systems as either metaphors or structuring elements for my understanding or my critique of the mind-body-spirit trilogy? I mean, the first thing I would say about that is that even though threeness is particularly attractive, I don't think three kind of captures it in terms of either alive, dead, never alive, or solids, liquids and gases. Certainly in the solid, liquid, gas schema, there is this fourth, plasma, which we don't come across in routine experience, but is quite, I think, reasonably scientifically established. So is there a fourth in addition to mind, body, spirit? And to return to the alive, dead, never alive schema of Mrs. Ashworth in 1965, is there a fourth there that again can lend structure to my understanding? And I think for there I would put alive, dead, never alive, and perhaps something like always alive. I'm not quite sure what that means even, actually. But I like the idea there's something of something which pushes a little bit beyond the alive thing. I'm not exactly sure what I mean by that, so I'm just kind of intuitively fondling something there. But in terms of the mind, body, spirit, solid, liquid, gas, plasma schema, how would that work in those terms? Well, solids, nothing. Well, I suppose mind and body and spirit, I think the fourth one I would put there wouldn't be something like plasma, it would be something like matter. Because the body isn't matter. The body might be made of matter, but the body isn't matter. The body is not just the human body, but bodies more generally. The body is a kind of form within matter, and matter passes through it. I've spoken before about the body being like a kind of fountain, or being like a kind of standing wave in which the material substance of the world kind of passes through that and adopts that form from. I'm giving it intentionality, it shouldn't have, but it kind of occupies that formal space for a while.
What time is it, please?
The time. I'm just picking up on the video of what was I talking about? Oh yeah, because so the body isn't really matter. The body might be made of matter, or might adopt matter as its content. But the body is more like a standing wave in the flow of matter, which sounds terribly esoteric and transcendent, and that's not really what I mean at all. I simply mean that, certainly in terms of something like my body, the human body, the muscles that I have now were growing in the ground as plants a few years ago, and they've been made into muscles by metabolic processes. And the skin that I have now, which is constantly being sloughed off as I walk, will return to the ground in a couple of days' time. So in that sense, the matter of the world is kind of passing through me and passing through everything else. Right. So in terms of that trilogy of mind, body, spirit, I think we need a fourth one, matter, to kind of capture that sense that something is flowing through it. What else? I think I'm going to hold there actually, because there's stuff I want to say about spirit, but I'm just at a kind of dead end really. I kind of got blocked off by a chap just came past me and asked me what time it was, which completely sent me off kilter, unfortunately. So I'm at a dead end right now.